Three former Anglican bishops have been ordained as Roman Catholic priests at Westminster Cathedral. Their ordination signals the inauguration of a special section of the Catholic Church, which has been set up as a home for Anglicans who are unhappy about the ordination of women bishops in the Church of England. Well, I'm joined from our central London studio by Austen Ivereigh from the organisation Catholic Voices, who attended that Mass in Westminster. A very good afternoon to you. Now, this has caused a split in the Anglican Church. How is it viewed from the Catholic Church?
Well, I think with some excitement, Archbishop Vincent Nichols, who was celebrating this morning's Mass, said this is how church history is made. It's an experiment. It's a journey into the unknown. It's a section within the Catholic Church where Anglicans are fully Roman Catholics, but on the other hand, can retain many of their rites, their liturgies, their practices, what they're used to in their worship. And of course, they stay together as congregations and as priests. And this enclave, this section within the Catholic Church, the idea is, will nourish the rest of the Catholic Church, as well as, of course, the Catholic Church nourishing them. So it's what they call an exchange, what they're calling an exchange of gifts. So I think it's a very exciting, historic moment.
Well, what if you are a Catholic? Would you want someone who'd come across, as it were, to be your priest?
Well, there's nothing to stop at the moment with the Ordinariate. A member of a parish, I, for example, belong to my parish. I can also go, if I want to an Ordinariate Mass, to one of these Masses, which would, of course, feel a little bit different and sound a bit different, but it's also a Catholic Mass. So there's greater diversity as a result of this. And I think most Catholics really do welcome this initiative. It's expected to bring in, over the next few months, by April, May this year, we expect to have something like 500 Anglicans, 50 priests, former Anglicans I should say, 50 priests, as well as of course these three former bishops who were ordained priests this morning, as well as a few others. This is quite a substantial number of former Anglicans who are becoming part of the Catholic Church, and I think it will change us, and I think it will also change the way in which Catholic and Anglican unity is built, because this is all about, if you like, our two churches remain apart, will remain apart, no doubt, for the rest of my lifetime. But nonetheless, this is a kind of glimpse of what eventual Catholic-Anglican unity could look like. So where it will lead, we don't know, but it's exciting. You
mentioned different practices within the two churches and how that has to be accommodated. We've had a lot of texts from viewers talking about celibacy and marriage in particular. How is that being reconciled?
Well, there was a very striking moment in this morning's Mass. When you ordain a Catholic priest, part of the ceremony is to lay what's called a stole and a chasuble. It's a kind of vestment on the new priest. And the chasubles and the stoles were brought up by the wives of these three men this morning becoming priests. Now, I've never seen that before in a Catholic ordination ceremony, and it shows just how willing the Catholic Church is to recognise that, that married priesthood is, of course, part of the Anglican tradition. We already, by the way, have in the Catholic Church former Anglican priests, now Catholic priests, who are married. And the Catholic Church recognises that if an Anglican priest is becoming a Catholic, that's a stage on a journey. He's already married, and it's quite right that, as it were, we don't expect people to we don't enforce celibacy unless you're choosing to becoming a Catholic priest from the beginning. So it's, again, recognising the particular tradition and the diversity.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but what happens if a current Catholic priest decides that perhaps they would like to move to the Ordinariate and become a married Catholic priest?
Well, you can't. If you belong, most Catholics, all Catholics in fact, belong to a diocese. And if you belong to a diocese, you can't switch to the Ordinariate. The Ordinariate is for Anglicans who are becoming Catholics. It's, if you like, a particular way into the Catholic Church where you choose to belong to the Ordinariate rather than to a diocese. But individually, an Anglican can continue, of course, to convert to Catholicism in the normal way and become a member of a diocese. So it's, if you like, an alternative route.
What about perhaps the different outlooks between the Anglicans and the Catholic Church? The Catholic Church perhaps in some cases being slightly more liberal, maybe some of these Anglicans being slightly more conservative. How do you get that all together?
Well, I think we need to be careful with the whole liberal-conservative thing, because in church terms it often doesn't work. But one interesting innovation which could have an impact on the Catholic Church in this country long term, which is that the Ordinariate, the way it's governed, conceives what they call a governing council. And this governing council will be made up partly of priests, partly of lay people, partly of religious, who are members of the Ordinariate, and they will choose the next ordinary, the next head of the Ordinariate will be actually chosen by this governing council. Now, the ordinary of the Ordinariate is the equivalent, really, of a bishop. He's not a bishop, but he is basically a bishop. This is not something that happens in the Catholic Church. In the Catholic Church, bishops are appointed directly by Rome. The local church doesn't really have much direct say in it. So now that's one practice which could have an impact long-term on the Catholic Church in England and Wales. It'll be very interesting to see how that works out.
Just very briefly, why do you have to have an ordinariate? Why can't you just embrace them into the church as they are?
Well, no, we do embrace them into the church as they are, and let's be absolutely clear about this. The 3 priests ordained this morning and all the people who will be coming into the new ordinariate that was set up this morning will be absolutely full Roman Catholics. There's no question mark over their Catholicity. The reason that this structure has been created is that those Anglicans, those former Anglicans, asked for this special provision to be made so that they could come over together. In other words, priests can come over with their people, with their congregation, so they can stay together rather than having to separate, which is, and follow individual paths, which has been the way up till now. So what the Pope was doing in setting this up was responding to a very insistent, repeated requests, long-term requests made over many years by these former Anglicans for this special structure, which allows them to preserve many elements of what's known as their patrimony, their tradition, while at the same time being full Roman Catholics. It's a complicated, quite complex beast, but nevertheless the principle is clear. They're full Roman Catholics while retaining some of their Anglican traditions.
OK, Austen Ivereigh, thank you.